So a number of issues to discuss. We're joined by Anthony Cox, who is a reader in clinical pharmacy and drug safety at the Birmingham University Institute of Clinical Sciences. Before we talk about this mixing of vaccines, as we heard in that report, let's just go back to this decision by numerous countries to temporarily suspend the Johnson & Johnson one-dose vaccine. I wonder if you can put the figures into context for us. And when we talk about this suspected link to very rare blood clots, when will we can we ever definitively know if it is genuinely linked?
Okay, so the J&J Johnson & Johnson vaccine is similar technology to the AstraZeneca vaccine. In the case of the US authorities, I think they've received 6 cases out of 6.8 million people who've used the vaccine, with 1 death, and they were mainly women. So it appears that it's quite a rare event, 1 in a million from the figures they have at the moment, though of course they may find other cases as they investigate, with a very low risk of death. So it's not dissimilar from the AstraZeneca rare blood clots linked to the thrombocytopenia we've seen in the UK that we've managed by reducing the use of the vaccine for the under 30s because of the lowered risk from COVID infection. So there's that side of it. It's very similar story to the AstraZeneca vaccine. How sure we will be, when we'll know it's for definite, well, it's never a sort of 100% binary decision. It's going to take time to find out what the mechanism is. It's interesting to know that both of these vaccines that have a similar mode of operation have a similar sort of adverse reaction being reported. So that's something that's giving us more information. I think it's more than likely true that the association is quite strong, though we don't quite understand exactly how it's happening yet. So it may take quite a while to find out exactly what is happening.
So when we pick up on the point that it's women at the moment, when we know of the cases in the US, and it was a higher proportion of women when it came to AstraZeneca, we also know that when there's a chance of blood clotting when women take things like the pill or HRT as well. So I wonder if you could just bring that into context for us, for people who are watching who are potentially concerned.
Well, it's interesting because in the UK cases, actually, there were more women who had reported this very rare blood clot. But I think the point was made by Sir Munir Pir Mohammed at the conference that once you normalise that for the increased use of the vaccine by women, there wasn't a different rate between men and women, so they couldn't actually say there was a sex-specific effect there. The US only have 6 cases which are women, so it'll be interesting to see if they have more cases, whether that effect disappears. And I have no understanding of what proportion of that Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been used in women versus men, for example. So we can't say for definite there is a sex link yet. I think in terms of the wider risks in association with other clotting risks, I don't think with this rare effect that it's something that we need to think about in that way. It's a different sort of mechanism. In fact, the risks you have from other effects like the oral contraceptive are far higher than this. This is extremely rare. So I wouldn't be too concerned about sort of any interaction about that at the moment.
It's good of you to stress that. I wonder if we can move on to this idea of mixing vaccines. Here in the UK, as you know, we're looking at expanding a trial of mixing different types of vaccines. What do you make of that, especially with those who have potentially had their first vaccination and will be looking to what they do next when it comes to the second dose?
Right, well, I think this is an excellent piece of far-sighted research by the UK. So back in January, there was a bit of a media storm after a New York Times piece had been published saying that the UK was going to mix vaccines, when in fact all the UK had said was what to do in a very rare instance where you don't know what the first vaccine was the patient had received. But at the same time, the Joint Committee on Vaccines and Immunisation did mention the starting of a study, and this is the COMCOV study that they've started about mixing vaccines, which there's been over 1,000 people in that study, just to see what the effect is of giving the AstraZeneca and then the Pfizer. And now it's been expanded to the Moderna and the Novavax vaccine. So now we have this really interesting study that's going to see whether it's just equivalent in terms of are we getting the same immunity from using 2 different vaccines, or perhaps there may be some benefits. And also, of course, to look at side effects. It provides us with some really useful information that we can then use to either make the vaccine schedule easier. We don't have to worry about which vaccine people get, or perhaps if there's an issue around safety with one vaccine and we need to shift to another. For example, in those patients under 30 who've received AstraZeneca, at the moment we're still saying take AstraZeneca for your second dose, but perhaps this study might show that you can switch to a different vaccine and get a different effect. So it provides options, and aside from the fact that it's useful for the UK, worldwide this will be extremely useful information.
Indeed. We thank you so much for your expertise and your time, Dr. Anthony Cox from the Birmingham University Institute of Clinical Sciences. Thank you so much.
Thank you.